What if the perfect solution to your biggest business challenge was hiding in your own backyard without anyone noticing? These might be forgotten patents, waste that could be turned into gold, or maybe just your strategy for how to make the next big leap. Today, we're talking to João and Sofiane from PreScouter, who have led several hundred projects with brands you know very well. They'll review how to find these hidden opportunities that get lost in the shuffle and how to spot real trends beyond the buzzwords. We'll talk about what it takes to figure out how your business can harness genuine breakthroughs.
Why giants miss their patents.
I've had the situation where someone came with a question, right? We go in, we look, and we find a patent that seems to really be what they want. It's like, hey, this is exactly doing what they want to do, right? What's the problem? The owner of the patent was actually the client's company that asked us about that, right? So I remember sheepishly going to them and say, hey, I found this. And the guy's like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah, it's like, who owns it? It's like, you guys. It's like, what? Yeah, this guy was the inventor. It's like, oh, that guy sits down the corridor from me. I had no idea we worked on that. So sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes your clients have the silver bullet, but they've just forgot about it because someone else patented it 20 years ago.
Do you find that happens more in like bigger companies, or is it happening across the board?
I think more with bigger companies. I would say probably with smaller companies, and the knowledge, it's more concentrated on a couple of people, right? As you grow, this happens. And I would say, I know within the same division, it's rare, it has happened. But once you start being, you're a multinational company, you have different focus, different research centers across the world. It happens, a lot more often because companies struggle on having a good knowledge base. It's hard. It's, there's a lot of different platforms that try and do it, but you need the right compliance, you need the right way to organize the data and information to do it. I've had quite a few times where I go, who's the leader on this space that really knows a lot about how this works? It's you guys, but the Japanese division, right? Or the European center that you have. And it's like, oh, okay. I guess I'll speak with my colleagues on that region then.
Yeah, building these knowledge bases that are digestible by AI is, I think, one of the areas that is going to become increasingly important for companies to be competitive in the years that are coming. Who knew that big corporations could literally own the patents they're desperately searching for? I mean, I lose my car keys all the time, but a multi-million-dollar patent? That's next level misplacement. Guess it's time for a company-wide scavenger hunt. And if you want more insider tips and lessons from real AI and tech projects, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. We share strategies, case studies, and little gems we've picked up from helping companies just like yours. Click the link in the description to sign up. Now let's get back to João and Sofiane.
Spotting hype versus reality.
I think, clients are looking for an unbiased, factual assessment of what is possible. There's so much hype when we're talking about new technologies coming from marketing, coming from people trying to sell their own solutions, that really getting that unbiased look is extremely important and valuable, especially when your job is to help create and provide revenue for the next 5 to 10 years in the mid to long term. And so how do you do this in an unbiased way? I've talked previously about talking to multiple experts, but it's also about evaluating the sources of data, how accurate they might be, where they're coming from, and its applicability to the specific use cases of the clients. And I think we're in a very good position to do this because A, we have a very strong technical understanding of these technologies through all the work that we've done and through the tools that we use. B, we have a very strong understanding of our clients and their needs because we work with clients over years and years and really get to understand how they work and what they're aiming to achieve, not only at a business unit level, but also at a corporate vision type of level. And we use that understanding to frame our analysis and recommendations directly for the client. So in some cases, it might be extremely important to only leverage very specific technical sources because it's a very technical challenge. And here we might categorize the results and the sources that we use quantitatively. We look at publication scores, H factors. We also leverage insights and referrals from the experts that we leverage in order to build that credibility. I think that's what has allowed us to set us apart from some other firms.
No, I think Sofiane for sure brings up quite a few important points, right? Because I know everyone talks about trends, right? And probably every company in the world, before every annual starts, they'll probably discussing, what's going to be the trends for the next 3 years, 5 years. I need to deliver on that vision on what's going to happen. And what I think happens that you look online, you do a Google search, you're going to find plenty of trends for industry X for the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever is going to be happening. But it's very easy to kind of get lost in a bit of that hype, right? Because sometimes there's something interesting, it comes in the news, it starts getting repeated, right? And then people kind of assume it's a trend. And that's not always the case, right? Maybe it's just something interesting that someone did and it's not really being replicated or having kind of the impact that you might think it will have just because of the attention it's getting on the media or social media, etc. I've actually had one client came to us just a couple months ago where they had just gotten, the latest report from one of their vendors on the trends for the industry. And then they started looking into those trends. And, one of them is like, okay, this is strange because I feel this was a trend 10 years ago. It's not a trend right now because they know the industry. And that's something that's sometimes what you need. You start questioning the first trend, and then they start looking, well, where's the data behind these trends? And that's something that happens often. People just, bring up trends without anything behind to really support them. And sometimes they might have, but other times maybe there's not really any good data to support it. So they came to us like, hey, guys, we have our leadership meeting coming up, right? We need a new report on trends. Can you help us? And over time, we've kind of developed a database approach where we look into a lot of those indicators that Sofiane said, and we kind of put everything together to come up with the trends. And not saying that, we're still looking into what's being said in the media and all that, but then we kind of, compare that into it. Okay, how much investment is going into it, right? How much venture capital, how many grants, how many research papers, how many patents, how many clinical trials, right? We'll put all that data together, including experts and that, mediaticity to come up with an actual understanding of, okay, which ones seem to be the most meaningful trends in this space, and then not just get that first more superficial of, okay, this is being talked about. It might not really have the impact that you're thinking about.
From data to recommendation.
At the end of the day, right, and we're consultants, and people come to us to get a final recommendation. And you need to be able to tell someone, okay, here's the solution that makes the most sense for your problem. And I think it's a combination of really understanding, both the problem and the solution, right? Because with any decision, there's only going to be some risk associated with it, right? Because if it was fully proven and it worked, someone's already done it, right? Someone already acquired it, right? Your competitor probably already has that solution working and is not available to you. So I see my job as making the best advice and try and mitigate as much risk as possible to our clients. And that goes by having, our teams, which are folks that have, the scientific or technical background required to do the proper evaluation of how something works. Because the data is not going to be complete. It's a question of really understanding from the data that's available, how does something work and how likely it is to be able to work under the requirements that our clients are looking for their problem. And of course, we combine our own assessments and information with information from experts in the industry so that we can bring together the most meaningful advice. And sometimes it can be something very complex. We're evaluating different, axes and maybe scoring each one of them. So, you can both know, hey, if what's the most important for you is that it performs, on A, then this is the top solution. But if you want more of a compromise, and maybe this other one is a bit more important, and you can, have something that's not the best on that first parameter, be another one come to the top, right? And I think right now that's something that it's really important work that needs to be done, and something that I feel people might rely a little bit too much on AI really understanding what's happening behind behind it, right? Which is perfectly fine for you to ask an AI system to, hey, can you rate these from some 0 to 1 on how good it is at these 3 or 4 or 5 properties. But then, if you don't really understand what's behind the rating, it really limits your ability to do a recommendation, that makes sense. Because without understanding why exactly something is being rated high on a particular parameter, right, you can't really be challenged on, hey, what about if I change the conditions a little bit? What about if if we wanted to combine with this other part? And I think ultimately that's a key part of the process. You need to understand things to be able to do a recommendation that's going to be the best one for your client's specific problem.
Turning waste into gold.
We're currently working with one of the largest mining conglomerates in the world, who is looking to generate additional cash flow as they've had difficult past couple of years. And we found, and we're investigating how they can turn some of their waste products into value-added products at specific sites. And so across each side, we've been able to understand and identify, what are the different processes to turn, this kind of waste product into multiple types of outputs. How valuable are they? How much might it cost to ship it, to sell it? Is it risky to ship it? Is it a commodity product or something specialty? And assess the risk, the potential ROI for all those factors. And ultimately, that's going to allow us to tell our clients, here at this site, here is exactly what kinds of process you should institute, which marketplaces you need to send these value-added products to in order to maximize that investment and maximize your cash flow amidst this tumultuous time. And that's just one of multiple examples. It goes back to those core principles: understand exactly what the problem is, come from an unbiased factual perspective, evaluate objectively the different approaches, and come with one solution that makes sense for that particular client at that particular point in time that aligns with their goals.
Understanding global complexity.
I think it's definitely a big challenge. I'll say on the geographic side, it's still a challenge, right? Even though today you're sitting at your desk and you get access to information from all across the world, and you can use automated translation and all that. It's not the same, right? I found that being able to still use some local assets, it really improves the way that you can get the right information, the right data. And it could be from the point of view of the language itself, right? I know it's always evolving, but the automated translators still don't fully get the right context to allow you to do the searches the right way. They don't always get the right context, which is important on small details. Particularly when you get on technical stuff, it's very easy for translation just kind of, okay, the word is translated this way, but it doesn't make sense on the concept you're looking at from a mechanical or biological point of view. And then you also have, the local knowledge, and that's, I see that in two ways. Sometimes it's knowing where to go, because you're used to be things in your environment, right? If I know where to go to search an FDA database or an EMA database, right? But I might not know how to do that in the Japanese one, in Japanese, or other regions where I'm not as familiar with. And then someone from that region will be able to know that and will be able to navigate those a lot better. And then the other part is local talent. You want to know, what's happening in China. Sure, you can search it, but you're probably better off talking with someone from there, right? And they might not speak English, or even if they do, maybe the depth of what you get out of a conversation with them in English might not be the same as the one you get if you're having that conversation in Chinese. So, having the right local assets, I think it's key to go through those language barriers. I know those cultural differences. I've done some work in Japan, and yeah, it's the way you frame your message can have a very big impact on people actually replying to you or accepting to talk to you. Right? If you just go with your American straight email, it's, you might struggle to get people to reply if you just translate that.
War stories are coming up in my head here with this example, and I completely agree with João. Having local expertise on the ground and being able to effectively communicate is very important. And you can even go beyond the local interpreter's route. For example, if we're looking at a specific market, we're going to want to talk to those companies that make up that specific geographic market to understand if indeed there's an opportunity for our client, to understand what the roadblocks are. I remember maybe 2.5 years ago, we were working for this telecommunications company, and they had developed this really interesting digital product that had a huge profit margin, but only in their very small local market. And they were trying to figure out, hey, can we sell this anywhere else in the world? And so our work was evaluating all the other countries in the world based on different criteria. What's the market size, but also what are the regulatory constraints that might occur in this kind of telecommunication setting? What would be the value of this data that they're ultimately selling? And is it actually feasible? And so we had to reach out to the local players across the global marketplace and really drive down to understand that and make our model and make our recommendations. In many of those countries, we had to get local interpreters. In other cases, we had to interface with our local interpreters to the local companies that we had to get these insights from. And all of that, while it takes time, is what allowed us to actually have a very accurate outcome and set of recommendations. So ultimately, it's about attention to detail. And in today's economy, and especially sort of the attention-focused economy, where everything is happening quickly and at a very superficial level in many cases, having that attention to detail really differentiates you and allows you to provide a lot more value than others.
I know that reminded me another point that I think is really critical, which is making sure they're trying to solve an actual need from the market, right? And it has happened to me countless times where a client comes to us and says, hey, trying to do this, we've already developed something, right? But it's my job now to kind of make sure that this is really addressing a need, and we go in to try and check it, and speaking with people on the field, and it's like, that's not really a need. That's not a problem that people had. But it was an interesting technical problem to solve, and someone just kind of assumed it was a need, right? And projects sometimes get moved ahead in big companies, and sometimes, millions might be spent on those, and they're not really addressing a need. And and connecting it back to our topic, I think this is particularly prevalent when you have different geographic regions at play.
Why AI won't solve everything?
I'll start and get the easy answer. That's saying that AI is going to be a big part of it. It's I think it's already everywhere, right? And as time goes by, I think it's going to make all these more effective and allow us to to really find things that would probably take days or weeks of research. Probably is going to make finding those in a matter of seconds or minutes, right? I don't think it's going to fully replace the need to have someone really consider things. And when you think about really breakthrough innovation, whether LLMs are really a great match for that or not, right? I think it's arguable, and that's a whole different discussion. But I think more and more, it's gonna having all these data a lot more accessible to be able to make these connections and be able to be better at finding some of these solutions that sometimes can be very, very elusive. So that's where I reckon things are going if everything goes well. I know some people feel that, because everyone knows that, everyone's getting, keeping their data closer to their hearts, right? Which might make, just put a wrench on that, jump towards innovation that we're all looking forward for.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely agree with all this. Everyone knows the uses of AI ever since, I think OpenAI really broke it into the mainstream. And since then, all of these companies and people are finding new use cases and ways to leverage it. What I think is coming next, and also I'm sure many people who listen to this podcast have heard of this, is moving towards the agentic AI concept, right? Where AI solutions interacting with each other are able to achieve a stream of work and processes to get you to an outcome, even across multiple topics. But getting there requires us to overcome a lot of very significant roadblocks that I'm not sure how we're going to resolve. Standardization of data and access to data is one of them. You have to also unlock permissions from multiple sources, APIs, SDKs, etc., in order to make these things work. In some cases, regulations stops you from doing this. There's also not a lot of standardization across industries and even within similar industries. And so I think there's going to be a little bit of standardization that needs to occur. Some big players that are going to likely help drive this forward initially and help influence more of the space, unless something very drastically comes along. And all of this is happening against a global backdrop, which is also going to influence a lot how technology evolves. The macroeconomic situation is very different now than it was just 5-10 years ago, right? We've also got geopolitical instability coming on, and that's leading to new use cases that might exacerbate those roadblocks that I've mentioned. And so alongside that bigger picture, seeing the evolution of these systems, how they work together to get us to these outcomes that we're looking for, that make all of our lives easier, that allow us to make more informed and better decisions, is going to take some time. And in the meantime, what we're doing is trying to understand what can be done today, how can we overcome those roadblocks little by little, specifically for those types of use cases, until that standardization and that evolution occurs.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining. This has been super interesting. Thanks.